You don't belong here, sweetheart. The cleaning crew leaves after the passengers deplane." That was the sentence that ruined Mrs. Beatrice Sterling's life, though she didn't know it yet. She thought she was just putting a young black teenager in her place in the first-class cabin of Flight 492 to Zurich. She thought she had the power, the money, and the influence. But she had no idea that the girl she'd just humiliated, Maria Anderson, was holding a phone that connected directly to the one man capable of shutting down the entire eastern seaboard's airspace. What happens when a snobby socialite and a corrupt pilot mess with the wrong teenager? Let's just say by the time the engines cut out, it was already too late for apologies. The distinct smell of recycled air and expensive leather hit Maria Anderson as she stepped onto the plush carpet of the first-class cabin. She adjusted her backpack, a worn vintage canvas bag, covered in patches from NASA and SpaceX, and glanced at her boarding pass. Seat 1A, the window seat in the very front row. Maria took a deep breath. She wasn't used to this. Usually she was crammed into economy with her knees hitting the seat in front of her, listening to a podcast to drown out crying babies. But today was special. Today was her 18th birthday, and her father, a man who rarely showed affection through gifts, had insisted. "You're going to the International Youth Science Summit in Zurich," he'd told her in his deep, rumbling voice. "You're going in style. No arguments." She found her seat and carefully stowed her canvas bag in the overhead bin. She sat down, feeling the soft embrace of the wide recliner. She pulled out her phone to text her dad. Boarded. "It's fancy, thank you." She was just buckling her seatbelt, closing her eyes to savor the moment when a sharp, screeching voice pierced her peace. "Excuse me." "I think you're lost." Maria opened her eyes. Standing in the aisle was a woman who looked like she had walked out of a catalogue for people who owned yachts. They didn't know how to sail. She was wearing a cream-colored Chanel suit that cost more than Maria's entire wardrobe, clutching a Louis Vuitton tote like a weapon. Her blonde hair was sprayed into a helmet of perfection, and her eyes were hidden behind oversized sunglasses, which she slowly lowered to look down her nose at Maria. "I'm sorry," Maria asked, her voice polite, but confused. "I said," the woman enunciated slowly as if speaking to a toddler, "you are lost. This is first class. Economy boarding is 10 minutes away, and the entrance is back there." She pointed a manicured finger toward the rear of the plane. Maria felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She knew this tone. She had heard it in stores when clerks followed her too closely. She had heard it at school, when teachers assumed she hadn't written her own essays. "I'm not lost, ma'am. This is my seat, 1A. The woman whose name Maria would later learn was Beatrice Sterling, wife of a real estate tycoon, and a woman who hadn't heard the word no since 1998, let out a dry, incredulous laugh. She turned to the people behind her, a line of wealthy-looking passengers waiting to board. "Can you believe this?" Beatrice scoffed loudly. "Now they're just letting anyone sit wherever they want. It's practically anarchy." She turned back to Maria, her smile dropping into a sneer. "Listen, honey. I don't know what TikTok challenge you're filming or if you snuck in here to steal a complimentary champagne, but you need to move. My husband and I always sit in 1A and 1B. It's our arrangement." "I have a ticket," Maria said, reaching into her pocket. Her hand was shaking slightly, not from fear, but from a boiling anger she was trying desperately to suppress. Her father had taught her discipline. "Control your emotions, Maria. Don't give them the satisfaction." "I don't care about your little printed piece of paper," Beatrice snapped, slapping Maria's hand away before she could display the boarding pass. "Flight attendant, excuse me, we have a situation." From the galley, a male flight attendant hurried over. His name tag read, Greg. He was tall, with slicked-back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He took one look at Beatrice Sterling, a Platinum Medallion member, a frequent flyer who tipped poorly but complained loudly, and then looked at Maria. Maria, in her hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, looked like a regular teenager. But in this cabin, regular was treated like a contagion. "Mrs. Sterling, what seems to be the problem?" Greg asked, his voice dripping with customer service syrup. "The problem, Gregory, is that there is a stowaway in my seat," Beatrice declared, pointing at Maria as if she were a rodent. "I want her removed, immediately. I cannot breathe with this confusion taking place." Greg turned to Maria. His smile vanished, instantly replaced by a stern, authoritative scowl. "Miss, let me see your boarding pass." Maria held it out. "It's right here, seat 1A. My name is Maria Anderson." Greg took the pass, squinting at it. He didn't scan it. He didn't check his manifest tablet. He just looked at it, then looked at her, then looked at Beatrice, who was tapping her foot impatiently. "This looks modified." Greg lied. Maria's jaw dropped. "What? No, it's not. I printed it at the kiosk 20 minutes ago. It says 1A, but clearly there's been a system error," Greg said, his voice lowering to a hush so the other passengers wouldn't hear the details, only the tone of reprimand. "We often have glitches where economy tickets get printed with the wrong seat assignments. But obviously we can't honor a glitch, especially not when it displaces a platinum member." "It's not a glitch," Maria insisted, her voice rising. "My father bought this ticket, full price. You can check the computer." "I don't need to check the computer to know that kids like you don't sit in seats like this," Greg said, his mask of professionalism slipping. "Now grab your bag. I'm going to move you to row 42. There's a middle seat open near the lavatory. If you make a scene, I'll have to escort you off the plane entirely." Beatrice smirked, crossing her arms. "Go on. Back of the bus, dear." The humiliation was a physical weight, heavy and suffocating. Every eye in the first-class cabin was on her. An older man in 2B shook his head in disgust, not at Greg or Beatrice, but at Maria. A woman in 3A was filming it on her phone, snickering. Maria stood up. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them who her father was. She wanted to tell them that the man who bought this ticket commanded more respect in a single phone call than everyone on this plane combined. But she didn't. She remembered her father's words. "Never show your cards until the pot is full." "Fine," Maria said, her voice icy calm. "I'll move." She grabbed her canvas bag. As she squeezed past Beatrice, the older woman leaned in, whispering harshly, "Better get used to it. The world isn't built for people like you to be at the front." Maria walked down the long aisle. The walk of shame. Past business class, past economy, plus all the way to the very back of the plane. The air grew stuffier, the seats smaller. She shoved her bag under the seat in front of row 42, squeezed into the middle seat between a man eating a pungent tuna sandwich and a woman with a cat carrier on her lap. The plane was still at the gate. The engines were idling. Maria pulled out her phone. Her hand was steady now. The anger had crystallized into something cold and hard. She dialed a number. It rang once. "Maria." The voice on the other end was gruff, authoritative, but laced with immediate concern. It was a voice that had ordered airstrikes and negotiated treaties. "You should be in the air. Is everything all right?" "No, Dad," Maria said, looking out the tiny window at the tarmac. "I'm not in 1A anymore. They kicked me out, said I stole the ticket, said I didn't belong." There was a silence on the other end of the line. It was a terrifying silence, the kind of silence that precedes a shock wave. "Who?" her father asked. One word, simple, lethal, The flight attendant, Greg, and a passenger, Mrs. Sterling. They moved me to row 42. They embarrassed me, Dad. They said the world isn't built for people like me. Is the plane door closed? Not yet. Good, General Davies Washington said. Keep your phone on. Do not get off that plane. I'm making a call. Maria hung up. She leaned back against the thin, uncomfortable seat and closed her eyes. She felt a strange vibration under her feet. But it wasn't the engines revving up for takeoff. It was the calm before the storm. Up in the cockpit, Captain Richard O'Malley was running through his pre-flight checklist. He was eager to get going. He had a golf tee time in Zurich the next afternoon. He keyed the mic to talk to the tower. Tower, this is Delta Alpha 492, ready for pushback over. Usually the response was immediate. Cleared for pushback. Instead, the radio crackled with a frantic energy. Delta Alpha 492, hold position. Repeat, hold position immediately. Do not, I repeat, do not initiate pushback. Captain O'Malley frowned. Tower, what's the hold-up? We're on schedule. Captain, the air traffic controller's voice sounded shaky. We just received a code-red order from the Pentagon. All departures from JFK are grounded effectively immediately, but specifically you. Specifically me. O'Malley laughed nervously. What is this, a joke? No joke, Captain. We have military vehicles breaching the perimeter fence. You are to shut down engines and open the main cabin door. Do not let anyone leave. Do not let anyone move. O'Malley looked out the cockpit window. His blood ran cold. Racing across the tarmac lights, flashing blue and red, were not airport police cars. They were black SUVs with government plates, flanked by 2 armored Humvees. They were heading straight for Flight 492. Karma had just arrived at the gate. The confusion in the cabin started as a ripple and quickly turned into a wave. First, it was the subtle change in engine noise, the whine of the turbines dying down instead of spinning up. Then came the murmur of the passengers. Why are we stopping? Why did the seatbelt sign turn off in seat 1A? Beatrice Sterling was sipping her pre-flight mimosa, looking utterly pleased with herself. She adjusted her diamond brooch and turned to her husband, Alaric. Finally, she sighed. The air feels cleaner already, doesn't it? It's just about standards, Alaric. If we don't enforce them, who will? Alaric, a man who had spent 40 years agreeing with his wife to avoid headaches, nodded absently. Yes, dear. Very good. Greg, the flight attendant, walked through the first-class cabin with a hot towel service beaming. He felt powerful. He had defended the sanctity of the premium cabin. He was sure Mrs. Sterling would write a glowing letter of recommendation to the airline corporate office. Then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. It didn't have the usual confident, soothing pilot drawl. It sounded strained. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain O'Malley. We have been ordered by air traffic control to hold at the gate. We've been informed of a security situation. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We will update you as soon as we know more. Beatrice huffed. Unbelievable. Probably another delay because they can't manage their baggage handlers. I swear this airline is going downhill. But in row 42, Maria sat perfectly still. She watched the other passengers groan and pull out their phones to text complaints. She saw the man next to her bite into his tuna sandwich aggressively. She looked out the window. From her angle in the back, she could see the tarmac clearly. The black SUVs screeched to a halt right next to the plane's front landing gear. Men in dark tactical gear poured out. They weren't airport security. They wore vests that said DOD, Department of Defense. Maria's phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Stay in your seat. Don't say a word until I get there. You're here," she texted back. "I was at a briefing at the UN. I'm 10 minutes out. My team is securing the vessel now." Maria took a deep breath. Her father wasn't just a general. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the man the president looked to when the world was on fire. And right now, the fire was in seat 1A. Back in the front, the mood was shifting from annoyance to fear. Through the first-class windows, they could see the armed soldiers surrounding the plane. "Alaric," Beatrice said, her voice trembling slightly. "Why are there soldiers outside? Is it a terrorist? Oh God, did that girl leave a bomb?" "Quiet, Beatrice," Alaric hissed, looking pale. Suddenly the main cabin door, which had been closed and locked, was thumped on from the outside. A heavy mechanical thud. Greg, the flight attendant, looked at the other crew members in panic. "Who opens the door? We're not at the jet bridge anymore." The mobile stairs. The kind used for emergency boarding or VIPs on the tarmac were being rapidly engaged to the side of the plane. The door burst open. The cool autumn air rushed into the cabin, followed instantly by 4 men in tactical gear holding assault rifles. They didn't point them at the passengers, but they held them at the low ready, scanning the cabin with terrifying intensity. "Everybody stay in your seats! Hands where we can see them!" the lead officer shouted. Beatrice dropped her mimosa. The glass shattered on the floor, orange juice soaking into the expensive carpet. "Oh my God! Don't shoot, I'm wealthy!" she screamed instinctively, covering her diamond necklace. Captain O'Malley stormed out of the cockpit. "What is the meaning of this? You can't just board my aircraft with weapons. I am the captain." "Captain, stand down," the lead officer barked. "This aircraft is now under the jurisdiction of the United States military. We have confirmation of a hostile act committed against a protected person on board this flight." A hush fell over the plane. A hostile act. A protected person. Greg stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Sir, there must be a mistake. Everyone here was screened. We just had a minor seating dispute, that's all." The officer ignored him. He pressed his earpiece. "Eagle 1 is approaching. Secure the perimeter." "Eagle 1, Alaric whispered to Beatrice. Isn't that a call sign for high-level officials?" A moment later, a tall, imposing figure walked through the open door. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a dress blue military uniform with 4 stars glistening on each shoulder and a chest full of medals that caught the cabin lights. He was a mountain of a man, with graying hair and eyes that looked like they could cut through steel. General Davies Washington had arrived. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He simply stood at the front of the first-class cabin, his presence filling the entire space. The silence was absolute. You could hear a pin drop in the galley. He scanned the room slowly. His eyes landed on seat 1A, on Beatrice Sterling. Then they slid to the flight attendant, Greg. "Who is the flight director?" General Washington asked. His voice was calm, deep, and resonated with command. Greg raised a trembling hand. I am, sir." The general walked slowly toward him. "My daughter, Maria Washington. She boarded this plane 30 minutes ago with a valid ticket for seat 1A. Where is she?" The color drained from Greg's face so fast, he looked like a corpse. Beatrice Sterling let out a small, strangled squeak. "Washington," Greg stammered. The ticket said Anderson, my wife's maiden name. We use it for her security when she travels alone," the general said, stepping closer. "I bought that ticket. I selected that seat. And 10 minutes ago she called me to tell me she was being treated like a criminal." The general leaned in his face, inches from Greg's. "So I will ask you one more time. Where is my daughter?" Greg couldn't speak. He just pointed a shaking finger toward the back of the plane. General Washington didn't look back. He looked at the soldiers. "Lieutenant, escort the flight crew off this plane. They are detained for questioning regarding interference with a federal dependent." "Yes, General." 2 soldiers grabbed Greg by the arms. "Wait. No, I was just following protocol," Greg screamed as he was dragged toward the door. She looked suspicious." "Get him out of my sight," Washington said. Then the general turned his gaze to seat 1A. Beatrice Sterling was shrinking into her seat, trying to become invisible. Washington walked over to her. He stood over her, blocking the light. "Mrs. He waited. "Sir, Sterling," she whispered. "Beatrice Sterling." "Mrs. Sterling," the general said. "My daughter tells me you had a problem with her sitting here. You thought she didn't belong." Beatrice tried to summon her usual arrogance, but it failed her. Well, look at her. She didn't look like she could afford it. "I have been flying this airline for 20 years, and you judged a book by its cover," Washington interrupted. "You assumed that because of the color of her skin and the clothes on her back, she was beneath you." He gestured to the empty seat beside her 1B, where her husband was sitting terrified. "You like this seat? You like the front of the plane?" "Yes," Beatrice said weakly. "Good," the general said. He pulled out his radio. "Lieutenant, bring her up." "Copy that, General." From the back of the plane, 2 soldiers were escorting Maria up the aisle. She walked with her head held high, her canvas bag over her shoulder. The passengers in economy, who had no idea what was going on, watched in awe as the girl from row 42 was escorted like royalty by special forces. When Maria reached the front, she stopped beside her father. She looked at Beatrice. She looked at the empty spot where Greg had stood. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. "Hi, sweetie." The general's face softened instantly as he looked at her. "Are you hurt?" "Just my pride," she said. The general turned back to Beatrice. "Mrs. Sterling, this is Maria. She is a brilliant astrophysicist intern. She is on her way to Zurich to accept an award for a paper she wrote on dark matter propulsion. She is 18 years old, and she has more class in her little finger than you have in your entire bank account." Beatrice looked down, unable to meet Maria's eyes. "Now," the general announced to the cabin, his voice booming, "since Mrs. Sterling and her husband are so concerned with proper seating arrangements, and since they believe that people should sit where they belong." He paused, a dark smile playing on his lips. "Lieutenant, remove Mr. and Mrs. Sterling from the aircraft. They are now on the no-fly list for interfering with a military family. And while you're at it, have their luggage removed." "What?" Beatrice shrieked, jumping up. "You can't do that. We're going to a gala in Zurich. We have reservations. Do you know who my husband is?" "I don't care who he is," General Washington said, "but I know who I am. And as of this moment, this airport is under my command until this situation is rectified. You are leaving now." The soldiers moved in. Beatrice started screaming, flailing her arms, knocking over her Louis Vuitton bag. "This is reverse racism. This is tyranny. I will sue the U.S. government." "You can try," the general said calmly. "Get them off." as Beatrice and Alaric were literally dragged off the plane, kicking and screaming. The passengers in first class sat in stunned silence. The woman who had filmed Maria earlier quickly deleted the video, terrified she would be next. General Washington turned to the pilot, Captain O'Malley, who was sweating profusely in the cockpit doorway. "Captain," Washington said, "you're the commander of this ship. You let a passenger dictate who sits where on your plane. You let your crew humiliate a child." "General, I wasn't aware of the specifics. I was in the cockpit," O'Malley stammered. "Ignorance is not an excuse for leadership failure," Washington said. "This flight is grounded. A new crew is being brought in. You are relieved of duty pending an investigation into discriminatory practices." "Relieved, but my pension. Should have thought about that before you let my daughter walk to the back of the bus," Washington said icily. The general put his arm around Maria. "Come on, kiddo. Let's get you something to eat while they swap the crew. You're not flying with these people." "But Dad, the summit." "We're taking the Gulf Stream," he said, winking. "It's faster, and the seats are better." As Maria and her father walked off the plane, leaving a cabin full of stunned, silent, and terrified passengers, Maria looked back one last time. She saw the empty seat in 1A. Karma hadn't just hit. It had landed a knockout punch. But the story wasn't over yet. Because what Maria didn't know was that Beatrice Sterling wasn't the type to go down without a fight. And as she sat in the holding cell of airport security, Beatrice was making a call of her own. A call to a tabloid journalist who specialized in destroying reputations. The war had just begun. The Gulfstream G650 was a sanctuary of silence and beige leather soaring at 45,000 feet. But for Maria, the luxury felt like a cage. She stared at the iPad in her hands, her heart hammering against her ribs. It had been 4 hours since the incident at JFK. 4 hours since her father had flexed the might of the US military to defend her honor. She thought it was over. She thought justice had been served. She was wrong. On the screen, a headline from the Daily Mail screamed in bold black letters, "Military tyranny. 4-star general grounds. JFK traffic ejects elderly couple to pamper teen daughter." Maria swiped. Twitter was worse. The hashtag #General Washington. Resign was trending #1 in the United States. "Dad?" Maria whispered. General Washington was sitting across from her, reviewing a classified briefing on the South China Sea. He looked up, his face calm. "What is it, Maria? Look." She slid the iPad across the table. The general put on his reading glasses. He scanned the article. His expression didn't change, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. The article quoted an anonymous witness who claimed the girl was screaming profanities, demanding special treatment, when Mrs. Sterling, a respected philanthropist, politely asked her to lower her voice. The general arrived with a literal army. He held us hostage. It was like a coup. Below the text was a photo of Beatrice Sterling leaving the airport terminal. She wasn't the screaming banshee from the plane anymore. She was wearing a neck brace, which she definitely didn't need, and dabbing a dry eye with a handkerchief, looking frail and traumatized. "She's lying," Maria said, her voice shaking. "Dad? She's twisting everything. She called me a stowaway. She's the one who was screaming." General Washington set the iPad down. "This is Jonas Cross's work." "Who is Jonas Cross?" "He's a crisis P manager. The kind you hire when you've killed someone or been caught embezzling millions. Beatrice Sterling didn't just go home. She went to war." The general's secure satellite phone buzzed. It was the White House Chief of Staff. Washington answered. "General Washington." He listened for a long minute. His eyes locked on Maria's, offering her reassurance, even as he received bad news. "I understand, sir. No, I will not issue an apology. I stand by my actions. The flight crew violated federal anti-discrimination laws and interfered with a dependent's travel. Yes, I understand the optics. I'll prepare a statement." He hung up and sighed, rubbing his temples. "The president is getting pressure," Washington said. "The opposition party is using this. They're calling it an abuse of power. They say I treated a commercial airline like my personal playground." "Maybe you should apologize," Maria said, tears welling up. "I don't want you to lose your job because of a seat, Dad." "I didn't do it for a seat, Maria. I did it for dignity," Washington said firmly. "And we don't apologize for demanding respect. But we do need to change the narrative. Beatrice has the first mover advantage. She's painting a picture before the paint is even dry." Meanwhile, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Beatrice Sterling was sipping a martini, her third since leaving JFK. She was sitting opposite a man in a sharp Italian suit, Jonas Cross. "You're doing great, B," Jonas said, scrolling through his phone. "Fox News wants an exclusive at 8 p.m. CNN is asking for a comment. We have the narrative locked. You are the victim of a woke military agenda. You were just trying to maintain order, and the big bad general came in to bully a helpless grandmother." Beatrice smirked, though the neck brace itched. "He thought he could humiliate me. I own buildings in this city. I have friends in the Senate. I'm going to bury him." "We need one more thing," Jonas said, his eyes narrowing. "The flight attendant, Greg. We need him on our side. If he says the girl was aggressive, it corroborates your story." "Where is he?" "Detained, I think," Beatrice said. "I'll get my lawyers on it. If we flip the flight attendant, Washington is finished. He'll be stripped of his rank by Monday morning." Beatrice laughed, a cruel, jagged sound. "Good. And that little brat. She'll never show her face in public again." They landed in Zurich under the cover of darkness. The general security detail whisked them to a safe house, a diplomatic residence, usually reserved for visiting dignitaries. The summit was tomorrow, but Maria couldn't think about science. She sat in the high-tech living room, surrounded by multiple screens. The news cycle was relentless. Beatrice Sterling was live on TV, wearing the neck brace, weeping fake tears. "I just felt so threatened," Beatrice sobbed to the anchor. "This girl, she had this gang mentality, and then the soldiers. I thought I was going to die." Maria felt sick. It was working. The world believed the lie. "We need evidence," Maria said to herself. "It's 2024. Someone always records." She thought back to the cabin. The man with the tuna sandwich. The older guy in 2B who shook his head. The woman in 3A. The woman in 3A. Maria remembered her. She had short, spiky red hair and expensive glasses. She had been holding her phone up. Maria had assumed she was filming to mock her, just another rich person, laughing at the poor girl getting kicked out. But what if she wasn't? Maria pulled out her laptop. She was an astrophysicist, a coder. She knew how to find things. She logged into Twitter and started searching geotags for JFK Terminal 4, filtering by the time of the incident. Thousands of posts. Most were people complaining about the delay. Then she saw it. A tweet from a user named @VeronicaLogic. Just witnessed the most insane display of racism and karma on Flight 492. Thread incoming. The tweet had 4 likes. It had been posted 10 minutes ago. The algorithm hadn't picked it up yet, because the user had only 50 followers. Maria clicked the profile. Veronica Chase, documentary filmmaker, truth seeker. Maria's heart stopped. She clicked the thread. There was a video file attached. Maria clicked play. The angle was perfect. It was shot from row 3, looking through the gap between the seats. The audio was crystal clear. "Excuse me. I think you're lost." Beatrice's voice dripping with venom. The cleaning crew leaves after the passengers deplane. The video captured everything. Beatrice slapping Maria's hand. Greg, the flight attendant, sneering, "I don't need to check the computer to know that kids like you don't sit in seats like this." It captured Maria's polite, shaking voice. It captured the older man in 2B, looking disgusted. And most importantly, it captured the aftermath. After Maria walked away, the camera zoomed in on Beatrice. Beatrice laughed to her husband. "See, you just have to be firm with them. They're like dogs, really. You have to show them who the master is." Maria gasped. She hadn't heard that part. It was vile. It was undeniable proof of malice. "Dad!" Maria screamed. "Dad, come here!" General Washington rushed into the room, followed by 2 aides. "What is it?" "I found it. I found the smoking gun." Maria played the video. The room went silent. The general's face darkened his eyes, narrowing into slits of pure fury. "She called you a dog," he whispered. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "This woman, Veronica Chase, she just posted it," Maria said. "But she has no followers. It's buried." "Not for long," the general said. He looked at his aide. "Get me the Cyber Command liaison." "Actually, no. We don't need the military for this. Maria, do you know how to make this go viral?" Maria cracked her knuckles. A determined smile finally broke through her stress. "Dad, I'm Gen Z. I don't just know how to make it go viral. I know how to make it a weapon." Maria didn't just retweet it. She downloaded the video. She opened her editing software. She added captions, big, bold, yellow text that highlighted every racist slur, every condescending remark. She added a timestamp. She juxtaposed Beatrice's interview on Fox News. I felt so threatened with the clip of her laughing and calling Maria a dog. She titled the video, "The Truth About Flight 492. She posted it to her own TikTok, which had a modest following from her science videos. Then she sent the link to a few online friends, hackers, and influencers she knew from the STEM community. "Do your thing," she typed. Then she waited. It started slow. 100 views, 500 views. Then the curve went vertical. In 10 minutes, it had 50,000 views. In 30 minutes, 1 million. The internet does not forgive, and the internet loves a villain they can destroy. @Justice for Maria started trending, overtaking General Washington resign. Comments poured in. OMG, she literally called her a dog. Cancel her. That flight attendant needs jail time. The general is a hero. I would have burned the plane down if that was my daughter. Back in New York, Jonas Cross's phone began to ring. Then it began to vibrate continuously, a solid brick of notifications. He looked at the screen. He saw the video. He watched Beatrice, his client, the victim, laughing about masters and dogs. Jonas went pale. He stood up and grabbed his briefcase. "Where are you going?" Beatrice asked, looking up from her 4th martini. "Fox News is in 10 minutes. "I'm leaving," Jonas said. "I'm dropping you as a client." "What?" "You can't. We have a contract." "The contract has a clause for gross moral turpitude and lying to counsel," Jonas spat. "You told me she was aggressive. You didn't tell me you acted like a plantation owner from 1850. It's just a video. It's probably deep-faked, Beatrice shrieked. It's over, Beatrice. Check your phone. You're not the victim anymore. You're the most hated woman in America. Jonas slammed the door. Beatrice scrambled for her phone. She opened Twitter. Her notifications were a blur of hate-death threats and brands disavowing her. But the worst was an email notification that popped up at the top of her screen. It was from the board of directors of Sterling Enterprises, her husband's real estate conglomerate. Subject: immediate removal from the board. Dear Mrs. Sterling, in light of the recent undeniable video evidence surfacing regarding your conduct. Beatrice threw the phone across the room. It smashed against the wall. But the karma train wasn't stopping. It was just picking up speed. Because while the internet was destroying her reputation, General Washington was preparing the legal hammer. The phone in the safe house rang again. This time it wasn't the president scolding him. It was the Attorney General of the United States. Davies, the Attorney General said, his voice grim but supportive. I just saw the video. Jesus. We're opening a federal investigation into the airline for civil rights violations. And Mrs. Sterling, I'm looking at hate crime charges. General Washington looked at Maria. We got him. Not yet, Maria said, her eyes glued to the screen. We got Beatrice. But we haven't gotten the system that let her do it. And I have an idea. What kind of idea? The Science Summit tomorrow, Maria said. I'm supposed to give a speech about dark matter. I think I'm going to change the topic. To what? To gravity, Maria said. And how hard things fall when you knock out their foundation. The auditorium at the Zurich Convention Center was a cavern of glass and polished wood, humming with the intellectual energy of 500 of the brightest young minds on the planet. The International Youth Science Summit was a place where teenage prodigies discussed quantum entanglement over coffee. Maria stood backstage, her hands clammy. She was wearing a simple navy blazer over a t-shirt that read, "Stand back, I'm trying science." You ready, kid? General Washington asked. He was standing in the wings, out of sight of the audience, his presence a silent steel pillar of support. I changed my slides, Dad. Maria said, her voice tight. I'm not doing the dark matter presentation. The general raised an eyebrow, but then he smiled, a proud, knowing smile. Good. Give 'em hell. The moderator introduced her. Please welcome Maria Washington, whose work on propulsion systems is revolutionizing. Maria walked onto the stage. The spotlight hit her blindingly bright. She looked out at the sea of faces, scientists, Nobel laureates, international press. They were expecting complex mathematics. They were expecting equations. Maria stepped to the podium. She didn't touch her prepared notes. Yesterday, Maria began, her voice clear and resonating through the hall. I was supposed to talk to you about dark matter, the theoretical substance that we can't see, but we know exists because of its gravitational effect on visible stars. It's the glue that holds galaxies together. She paused, letting the silence stretch. But today, I want to talk about a different kind of invisible force. A force that also dictates the structure of our world, deciding who rises and who falls. I want to talk about the gravity of bias. A ripple of confused murmurs went through the crowd. This wasn't astrophysics. Maria pressed a button on the clicker. The massive screen behind her didn't show a star chart. It showed a still frame from Veronica Chase's video. Beatrice Sterling's face twisted in a sneer, pointing a finger at Maria. The audience gasped. The story was global news by now, but seeing it here in this sanctuary of intellect was shocking. Science teaches us that if your foundational assumptions are wrong, your entire experiment will fail. Maria continued, her voice gaining strength. Yesterday, a woman assumed that because of my age and my race, I was a thief. A flight attendant assumed that because of those same factors, I needed to be removed to the back of the plane to maintain order. She clicked the button again. The screen showed the definition of gravity. Gravity is the force that attracts a body toward the center of the earth, or toward any other physical body having mass. In our society, money and whiteness have been assigned the most mass. They are the center of gravity that pulls opportunity, comfort, and the benefit of the doubt toward them. She looked directly into the camera, recording the event for a live global stream. When I refused to be pulled by that gravity, when I stood my ground in seat 1A, I disrupted their universe. And the reaction wasn't rational. It was violent. It was an attempt to crush an anomaly. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. We cannot build spaceships to take us to Mars if we cannot even build a metal tube on Earth where every passenger is treated with human dignity. My father grounded a fleet of planes to protect me. But what about the kids who don't have a 4-star general on speed dial who grounds the planes for them? Maria dropped the clicker onto the podium. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The old gravity is failing. It's time we built a new center to revolve around, one based on truth, not appearance. She walked off stage into dead silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then slowly, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist in the front row stood up, then a delegate from Kenya. Then the entire auditorium rose as one, a thunderous wave of applause that shook the glass walls. It wasn't just applause for a speech, it was the sound of a paradigm shifting. While Maria was receiving her standing ovation in Zurich, the mood in the boardroom of Meridian Airlines in Chicago was funerary. Robert Stone, the CEO, stared out the window at the city below. He was a man who measured morality in quarterly earnings. Right now, his morality was tanking. The stock is down 12% since market open. Stella Jenkins, the VP of Public Relations, said, her voice shaking as she swiped through tablets. The hashtag #BoycottMeridian is trending globally. Major corporate accounts, IBM, Google, hell, even the NFL, are pausing their travel contracts, pending a full investigation. How much? Stone asked, not turning around. We're looking at a potential loss of $400 million this quarter alone. And that's before the lawsuits. The FAA is up my ass, the DOT is launching an audit, and the Justice Department just subpoenaed our entire training manual history for the last decade. Stone turned. His face was gray. Fix it. I can't fix a viral video of our staff being racist accessories to a crazy socialite. We issued an apology. It got ratioed into oblivion. People hate us. Then give them someone to hate more than the company, Stone snapped. We need a sacrificial lamb. We need to show we are taking decisive action. Stella paused. Greg Henderson, the flight director. Do it. Cut him loose. Publicly. Loudly. Make sure the world knows he went rogue and violated every policy we have. But sir, Stella cautioned, he followed the premium passenger preference protocol. It's an unwritten rule to prioritize high-status flyers in disputes. If he sues for wrongful termination, that will come out in discovery. Stone slammed his fist on the mahogany table. He won't sue. He'll be too busy trying to stay out of prison. The general is pushing for federal charges against him for falsifying a security threat to the captain. Feed him to the sharks, Stella. It's him or us. 5 minutes later, a press release went out. Greg Henderson was terminated effective immediately for gross misconduct and violation of Meridian Airlines' core values of inclusivity. They threw him overboard to save the ship, not realizing the ship was already taking on too much water. Greg Henderson sat on the worn-out couch in his Queens apartment, staring at the TV. He hadn't showered since he was dragged off the plane. He was still wearing his uniform trousers, though the shirt with the airline insignia was crumpled on the floor. On the screen, the CEO of Meridian Airlines was giving a press conference. The actions of former flight attendant Gregory Henderson were abhorrent and do not reflect the values of our company. He acted alone, ignoring our strict non-discrimination protocols. We have terminated his employment with cause. Liar! Greg screamed at the TV, throwing an empty soda can at it. You gave me a bonus last Christmas for handling difficult seating situations. It was your policy. His phone buzzed. It was a text from his landlord. Greg saw the news. My wife is furious. We can't have this kind of trouble here. You have 3 days to pack up and leave. Don't make me get an eviction notice. Greg felt like the walls were closing in. He checked his bank account. He had $1,200. Rent in New York was due in 4 days. He had no job, no reference, and his face was globally recognized as the racist steward. There was a loud knock on his door. Greg froze. Reporters, angry mobs. He crept to the peephole. It wasn't reporters. It was 2 men in dark suits wearing earpieces. FBI. Greg opened the door, trembling. Gregory Henderson, one agent said, holding up a badge. Yes, we have a warrant for your arrest. Arrest for what? I just got fired. Title 18, United States Code Section 1001, making false statements to a federal official, specifically telling Captain O'Malley that Mariah Washington possessed a fraudulent ticket and posed a security risk, causing the grounding of a commercial flight. You're also named as a co-conspirator in a federal civil rights investigation. Greg's knees gave out. As they cuffed him, leading him down the hallway of his cheap apartment building, his neighbors opened their doors to watch. No one offered help. Someone shouted, "Enjoy, Coach Loser." The karma wasn't finished. It had bigger fish to fry. In the sprawling Sterling estate in the Hamptons, the silence was deafening. The staff had all quit that morning, refusing to work for Beatrice after seeing the video. Beatrice was in the master bedroom, popping a Xanax and trying to figure out why her credit card had been declined when she tried to order online groceries. The door opened. It wasn't Alaric coming to comfort her. Alaric stood there, dressed in a suit, holding a manila envelope. He looked at his wife of 30 years. Not with love, not even with anger, but with the cold calculation of a man cutting a tumor out of his life. Alaric, darling. Beatrice slurred slightly from the pills. Where have you been? The internet is being so mean to me. You need to call the president. You donated to his campaign. Alaric threw the envelope onto the bed. I spoke to the board and my lawyers. And Sterling Enterprises has lost contracts in 3 states today. The city of New York is reviewing our development permits. You have become a toxic asset, Beatrice. Beatrice picked up the envelope. Her hands shook as she pulled out the documents. At the top, in bold letters, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. Divorce, Beatrice whispered, horrified. Alaric, you can't. We have an arrangement. Our arrangement was based on you being a social asset, not a national pariah, Alaric said icily. The prenuptial agreement is clear. In the event of gross reputational damage caused by one party, the payout is capped. You're cutting me off. After everything I've done for you. She screeched, the Xanax haze burning off into pure rage. You did this to yourself. You couldn't just let a teenage girl have a seat. You had to be the Queen. Alaric turned to leave. By the way, the lawyers froze the joint accounts pending the settlement, and I've cancelled your supplementary Amex cards. You might want to learn how to budget. Get out! Get out of my house! She screamed, throwing a crystal vase at him. It smashed against the closing door. Beatrice was alone in her mansion. No husband, no money access, no friends, no staff. But she did have visitors. The gate buzzer to the estate sounded. Beatrice looked at the security monitor. It was a convoy of black SUVs. The Attorney General of the United States had sent his regards. They weren't just there to arrest her for a hate crime. They were there with a search warrant for the entire estate, looking for evidence of financial fraud that her husband might have tried to hide. Beatrice Sterling. The woman who couldn't stand to see someone else in first class was about to get a very long, very uncomfortable seat in federal transport. Back in Zurich, Maria sat in her hotel room watching the news on her laptop. She saw the footage of Greg being led away in cuffs. She saw the breaking news banner about the raid on the Sterling estate. She didn't feel triumphant. She just felt exhausted. Her dad walked in, handing her a mug of hot chocolate. He sat down beside her. "It's a lot of wreckage," General Washington said softly, looking at the screen. "Did we go too far, Dad?" Maria asked. "They lost everything." "No, Maria. They went too far. We just shined a light on it. When you build your life on stepping on other people, you shouldn't be surprised when the floor gives way." He put his arm around her. "You changed things today, kid. That speech. I've never been prouder." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "I just wanted to go to a science camp, Dad." "I know," the general sighed. "But sometimes history calls on you when you're just trying to catch a flight." The immediate storm was over, but the landscape had changed forever. Maria was no longer just a student. She was an icon, and the world was waiting to see what she would do next. 6 months later. The morning sun beat down on the side of a highway in upstate New York. Beatrice Sterling wasn't wearing Chanel anymore. She was wearing a neon orange state-issued vest. Her divorce had left her with a fraction of her wealth, and her guilty plea for hate crimes had resulted in 500 hours of mandatory community service. "Keep moving, Sterling," a supervisor shouted. Beatrice gritted her teeth, stabbing a greasy fast food wrapper with her trash picker. As she worked, a roar filled the sky. She looked up to see a massive jet climbing into the clouds, a world she used to rule, now completely out of reach. She looked down at the trash in front of her. It was a crushed Meridian Airlines cup. She speared it and shoved it into her garbage bag. Karma hadn't just hit her, it had buried her. In Washington, D.C., the atmosphere was very different. The Oval Office hummed with the energy of history being made. Maria Washington stood next to the president, with her father beaming behind her. "Thanks to the bravery of a young woman who refused to move," the president announced to the press corps, "we are signing the Fair Skies Act into law. This mandates zero-tolerance penalties for discrimination in air travel." Maria took the pen. She wasn't the scared teenager anymore. She was now an incoming freshman at MIT on a full astrophysics scholarship. She signed her name on the bill that would protect millions of travelers. "This isn't just about seats," Maria told the cameras. "It's about ensuring that no matter who you are, your ticket is valid. You belong in the room." That evening, Maria and the general arrived at Reagan National Airport to fly home. The gate agent recognized them instantly, treating them with a reverence usually reserved for royalty. As they walked to the jet bridge, a pilot emerged. He was young black and wore a look of profound respect. He extended a hand to Maria. "Ms. Washington," he said softly. I just wanted to say thank you. Because of you, the culture is changing. My crew knows that respect is the first item on the checklist now." Maria smiled, shaking his hand. "Safe flight, Captain." She boarded the plane and turned left into first class. She found seat 1A. She stowed her worn canvas bag, the one with the NASA patches in the overhead bin, and sat down. The leather was soft, the legroom ample. She looked out the window at the tarmac, thinking of how far she had come. The heavy things, the bigotry, the entitlement had fallen away. Gravity had done its work. Maria Anderson leaned back and closed her eyes. She was exactly where she belonged. And that is the story of how one teenager, a canvas backpack, and a father's love took down an entire system of entitlement. It's a powerful reminder that when you try to push someone down, you might just be giving them the leverage they need to change the world. Maria proved that true class isn't about the price of your ticket or the brand of your suit. It's about dignity, integrity, and standing your ground when the world tries to move you. Beatrice Sterling and Greg learned the hard way that in the game of life, karma is the only flight that is never delayed. What would you have done if you were in Maria's shoes? Would you have moved to row 42? Or would you have made that phone call? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice served ice cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel soar. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that the good guys do win. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, be brave, and always claim the seat you deserve. I'll see you in the next one.